Functions are the things you find on the right bottom. All of these. This is the material function library. You can drag these in, and all of these come with certain properties and certain behavior. What these are, however, is nothing more but pre-made blocks, pre-made sets of expressions. So these functions in themselves, they don't do anything new. They simply give a pre-made functionality of combinations of these. So all of these functions are made of just expressions. In fact, if you add a function, and then you look in the properties, it says here material function is this one. If I now look up this one in the content browser, press the magnify glass, it takes me here, and you can see this package contains all the functions. So all of these are the functions you find in the list over here. And if you then were to double click one of those functions, that will open up the material editor for that function. So then you will get this. And you can see very clearly here that within each function, it's nothing more but a bunch of standard expressions. So if you have combinations in materials that you use very often, what you should do is turn them into a function, because it will make it easier to work with. Plus, if ever you come to a point where you have to change your setup, you would only have to change the function, and every material that uses that function would take along your change. So what we will do now for our character is we will make our own custom function to replace something in here that we've done multiple times. Now there's one thing in here that we've done at least twice, and that's using the time and the sign. This setup here is used twice. It's used for both electricity, and it is used here for the fire. So what we could do is turn this block into a function, so that not every time you need a flickering animation, like an on and off animation, you have to rebuild it from scratch, but you can instead simply drag a function into the material editor, and you immediately have the behavior you need. So in order to set this up, we will have to go to the content browser to our package and create a new material function. That will open up this, and you can see here, this is the output result. So what we need to do is we need to define a number of inputs and outputs. You can see if you drag in one of the existing functions, it has a number of inputs and it has a number of outputs. These are user defined, so we need to set up the behavior in here and then expose the right type of output and inputs. I will take these, because this is the block we will copy, and I simply copy it, Ctrl+C, and paste it in here. And this is a very simple setup, but then we simply drag that to output result, and that's pretty much it. You can type the name here, output name, and you can type a description as well. If you wish to do more with this, you could look for function input, for example. This allows you to put something in here. As an example, I could say I want to add a number to it, but the number that I want to add to it, I don't know yet what it is in the function. It's something you will do in the material later. Well, then you could add, sorry, wrong setup. It's better if you do it the other way around. Then you could add a function input. And in fact, you can also add an output, function output over here. And type a name here. And then you have to add something in here as preview. You don't have to, but you could add a constant 3 vector in here as preview, for example. If you click the input, it shows you input type. This is what it expects to get. So you need to define what kind of input it is. If you put it to a scalar, then you wouldn't be able to apply a constant tree vector to it. So what you will put in there has to match the type it is. So let's say it is indeed just a scalar. Then we can leave it like this. Just apply it. And then in your material, you can just drag it in from the content browser. So here is our function. You just drag your function you made in here into the material. And we can see, then we get this. You can see our two outputs. This is the actual result we have to use. This is our example output, and this is our example input. And you can see it has S behind it, meaning it expects a scalar. It expects a constant one vector. So I would be able to do this, and then etc. Now I don't need the input and the output there. That was just an example, but I do need the result. So what I do now is I'm going to replace this one instead with a function. Like so. And again for the electricity over here. And that works. And now we can simplify the material, as you can see. So we could have done this kind of animation also in a function. And then you always have the animation defined in a function. You simply input a texture into the function and you immediately get an animation like this. Things like that. That's also what we've done with emissive. The eye in particular. This one. So again, this is one I made myself because I couldn't get the Epic one working. So I took the Epic one and I modified it. So you can see here how this one works, for example. So this is the vector 2 for the upper left corner. It says here it expects a vector 2. And then we have just a setup of all kinds of expressions. Also note here, for example, how it generates a gradient using nothing but standard expressions. Note how it then hardens this one by just making a black and white side. So all these kind of things you can do with nothing more but combinations of expressions. And then it outputs this. Next up, we have to put this into an instance and then instance away from our main instance. So we can have an instance be based on another instance, which is based on another instance, and so on. So first of all, to make the first instance, because this is the character master material, if you're going to make a full game or you're going to make several different characters and all that, what you should have is one master material somewhere. That material, once it's made, it's never modified again. It's left as is. It's not duplicated for each character you have to make. It's just as it is. And then you base instances from that on that master material, and that's where you assign the different textures for the different characters. So to make an instance based on this one, right click it, create new material instance. Then I will make one new master instance or something like that for my Taylor character, which will get you that. That also automatically opens up in this window. And here you can see the same material as we made it, but in a simpler format. So we can still change it, but we can't actually edit all the expressions. We can only edit those numbers that were, and those things that were added and turned into a parameter. So all these things are all the parameters that we made in the material. These are all the names that we gave it and all the groups that we gave it. What you can do, for example, now is you can take the ambient color or something simple and something obvious. Here's emissive ambient color, and then you can change this. make sure you enable the property. So I enable that, and now I'm going to make it bright orange. And you can see by doing that, that does not affect the original material. You can make it bright purple so it's even more obvious. The original material still has its original emissive ambient light color. So that's the instance for my character. Then I'm gonna make a second instance based on this one. And in that second instance, we can change the textures and apply that to the armor. This is just as practice to show that you can instance on an instance as well, which few people seem to realize. So now this one, you can see here, is based on the instance, which in turn is based on the master material. And here we can then change our textures. So we have a group called textures here, and these we can change. So this is the diffuse for the armor. I enable the property and replace. Then the normal map and specular for the armor, likewise. And then the eye still shows up, so I'm simply going to go to emissive, find the eye somewhere in here. If I have that, yes, I have eye color intensity, and I'm simply going to make that black to get rid of the eye. Now the good thing is that if we were to then realize, okay, this is very nice, but it turns out the reflection is not strong enough, what we can then do is go edit the master instance, so the instance above the armor. And if we, for example, we take the emissive, the ambient light again. So if you then do this, apply and change one of these properties over here, it also changes in all of the children. So this automatically inherits all of the behavior of the parent. And that will make it much easier to tweak values and to tweak like the amount of reflection, or maybe one day you find out that the game should have more reflection, all the characters in the whole game should be more reflective. Well, that would only take one number then, and not editing 20, 30 different materials. And then here's our character. Let's add him to the viewport and see how he looks there. It glows a little bit too much perhaps, but it otherwise works. Also, the good thing with instances is that you can change the properties while you work on them, and they don't have to be compiled. You can in fact just drag them up and down and immediately see any effect they have. So for example, dissolving him. You can simply use a slider here and do like this. And you can see the dissolve works pretty good. One thing I apparently forgot is to change the reflection mask. So I'm trying to change the reflection number here, but that obviously doesn't work because the mask is still incorrect. Or the channel that uses reflection channel here. So you can try to go for green. And everything seems to work, I think. So we pretty much come to the end of the character. There's some more properties we can tweak. Perhaps the normal map gets a bit aggressive here, gets very game-like. So there's plenty of properties to tweak, but we now have a system. We have an instance system that we could use, easily extend to 20, 30 more characters, to weapons, to vehicles, to anything we want. Pretty much all of the important properties and important colors, textures, everything that's important to the material is exposed to within the instance. So we can easily tweak this and adjust it as we wish without having to add it to actual material all the time. And all the features work. There's electricity support, character can dissolve, there's support for the fire, the eye closers, etc. So everything is in here with detailed normal mapping. And we have the base for a good system here. So again, if more characters were to be added to the game, you would reuse the same master material and create new instances based on that. You would in fact create one instance for each character. And then upon that one instance for each character, so say this is the instance for character A, this is the instance for character B, then from each of those you would then create another child instance based on that. For example, handling various team colors or variations, or perhaps those characters have multiple different textures and materials assigned. For example, the character here has 2 materials assigned, the armor and the body. So you would set it up like that. One master material for all the characters, then one instance for each character or each vehicle or each weapon you have, and then any variation or different material slots you need to fill in on that character, vehicle or weapon would then be based again on that instance. So you build it on like that. I hope you have enjoyed this second asset development video and that you have learned a lot from it. Thanks a lot for having bought this video and for supporting me. Good luck and have fun creating things.